What happens when the infinite speaks to the finite for the very first time? What happens when heaven leans toward earth, not through thunder or fire, but through a word, read, spoken to a man who had never read a book? Surah Al Alaq is not only the beginning of the Quran, it is the beginning of prophecy, the birth of guidance, and the first moment when the silence of the cave was shattered by divine address. Before these verses became recited on tongues, they descended upon one heart, alone in the Cave of Hira. The night was still, the mountain was silent, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, known for truthfulness, yet unprepared for revelation, was enveloped by a presence beyond all familiarity. This surah must first be heard there, in that cave, in that trembling moment, before it is heard within ourselves. Only then does its inner light unfold safely, reverently, and truthfully. Verse 1. Read in the name of your Lord, who created. This is the first divine command ever revealed to humanity through the seal of the prophets, peace be upon him. Not pray, not proclaim, not believe, but read. Historically, the command strikes with profound intensity. The prophet, peace be upon him, responds in humility and truth. I am not one who reads. This is not refusal, it is honesty. It is the confession of human limitation, standing before divine infinitude. Sufis pause here with deep reverence. The command read is not addressed to literacy, but to receptivity. Allah is not asking the prophet to draw from himself, but to receive. Revelation begins not with human capacity, but with divine initiative. In the name of your Lord safeguards the entire process. Nothing here emerges from ego, intuition, or mystical discovery. Everything flows from Rab, the one who nurtures, raises, and brings creation from stage to stage. Spiritually, this verse teaches the Ummah. All understanding begins when the self steps aside, and the name of Allah is placed at the center. When you read life without His name, meaning fractures. When you read with His name, even silence speaks. Let this verse be felt, not rushed. It is the sound of awakening. Verse 2. Created man from a clinging form. The Quran does not say, created man noble, or created man powerful. It says, from something that clings. In the cave, overwhelmed by revelation, the prophet, peace be upon him, is reminded gently of human origin. You are not being addressed because you are powerful, but because you are created. The word clinging evokes dependence, attachment, fragility. Sufis hear in this a deliberate humbling. At the moment of the greatest honor, being chosen for revelation, the prophet is reminded of human weakness. This preserves balance. Honor does not inflate, it grounds. For the listener today, this verse dissolves arrogance at its root. Whatever knowledge, spirituality, or clarity one attains, it all rests upon an origin of need. Even now, the soul clings to breath, to mercy, to divine patience. Feel this truth in your body. Your strength was never self-made. Verse 3. Read, and your Lord is the most generous. The command is repeated, but now paired with divine generosity. This repetition reassures the prophet, peace be upon him. What is descending upon you is not harm. It is a gift. In Sufi understanding, generosity means Allah gives before we are ready. He gives knowledge to the unlettered, courage to the fearful, and responsibility to the humble. Revelation itself is generosity. Guidance is generosity. Even the burden of prophethood is generosity, because through it, humanity is lifted. For the seeker, this verse quiets fear. Approaching God does not impoverish you. It enriches you beyond expectation. Verse 4. Who taught by the pen? In the outward sense, this verse establishes the sacred origin of knowledge, writing, preservation, and transmission. Revelation will not remain suspended in the unseen. It will be entrusted to memory, to script, and to generations yet unborn. But the Sufi listens more carefully. The pen here is not merely an instrument of ink. It is a symbol of mediation. Allah teaches not only directly, but through means, through angels, through words, through signs, through time. The pen represents the descent of meaning from the unseen realm into form, where it can be carried, revisited, and lived. In Sufi insight, the pen also reminds the seeker that truth is not seized, it is inscribed. You do not force knowledge into yourself. It is written upon you when the heart becomes receptive. Just as the page does not argue with the pen, the heart must soften to receive divine instruction. There is also a subtle humility embedded here. The Prophet, peace be upon him, who did not write with a pen, is taught by the pen, meaning that knowledge does not depend on personal skill, but on divine will. Allah can teach through what you do not possess, proving that guidance belongs entirely to Him. Thus the pen becomes a mercy. It slows knowledge down, protects it from distortion, and makes it accessible to those who come later. Spiritually, it teaches patience. Insight that is written is insight that endures. Let the listener feel this. Whatever Allah wishes to teach you will reach you, whether through words, silence, or events, at the moment your heart becomes a page. Verse 5. He taught man what he did not know. This verse completes the meaning of the one before it. Teaching is not limited to information, it is transformation. Allah does not only increase knowledge, He changes the knower. Historically, it affirms that the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not bring revelation from prior learning. Everything he conveyed was taught by Allah. This safeguards prophethood from every accusation of self-authorship. In deep Sufi reflection, this verse reveals something even more tender. Ignorance is not an obstacle to divine teaching. It is the condition for it. The heart that admits, I do not know, is the heart that can be taught. Certainty that hardens into self-sufficiency becomes a veil. Not knowing becomes an opening. Allah teaches in layers. First, He teaches the tongue, then He teaches the mind. Finally, He teaches the heart, where knowledge turns into humility, awe, and surrender. Many things you now know were once unimaginable to you. This verse reminds the seeker that transformation did not begin with effort, but with divine generosity. Even awareness of your own flaws is a form of teaching. Let this verse be felt as reassurance. You are not behind. You are being taught, sometimes through clarity, sometimes through confusion, sometimes through loss that reshapes understanding. Verse 6. No, indeed man transgresses. Now the tone shifts, not to condemn, but to diagnose. When awareness grows, the ego reacts. Transgression here is not merely sin, it is overstepping. The human being forgets their origin and assumes false autonomy. The Sufi understands this as the soul mistaking borrowed light for its own. When knowledge is divorced from humility, it becomes a veil. Notice how gently the Qur'an corrects, first reminding you of generosity, then warning you of forgetting. Verse 7. Because he sees himself self-sufficient. This is the root disease, not disbelief, but self-sufficiency. The moment you feel you no longer need God, you have already fallen, even if your lips still pray. The Sufis say this is the most subtle idol, the competent self. This verse exposes the lie the ego whispers, I am fine on my own. When this illusion breaks, the body exhales. Dependence returns, not as weakness, but as truth. Verse 8. Indeed, to your Lord is the return. Every illusion has an expiration date. This verse gently but firmly reminds, all journeys end in God, not as punishment, but as truth. You can delay remembrance, but you cannot escape return. For the Sufi, this is comforting. No matter how far you wander, the end is not exile, it is reunion. Let this verse settle in your chest like a deep exhale. Verses 9 and 10. Have you seen the one who forbids a servant when he prays? Historically, this refers clearly to Abu Jahl, attempting to prevent the Prophet, peace be upon him, from prayer. The Quran names oppression without hesitation. Prayer here symbolizes connection. Anyone who blocks prayer, externally or internally, is resisting awakening. In Sufi reading, this forbidder is not only a tyrant outside you, but the ego within you that mocks devotion, delays remembrance, and belittles sincerity. Ask yourself gently, what inside me discourages my closeness to God? Verse 11 and 12. Have you seen if he is upon guidance or enjoins righteousness? This verse reverses judgment. The one being stopped may be closer to truth than the one stopping him. Sufis learn here not to measure people by power, but by orientation of heart. Guidance often looks quiet. Righteousness often looks unremarkable. Yet God sees direction, not display. Verse 13 and 14. Have you seen if he denies and turns away? Does he not know that God sees? This is not a threat. It is awareness. To know that God sees is to live transparently. Nothing is hidden, not your struggle, not your sincerity. For the seeker, this is liberating. You no longer need to perform. You are already seen. Let this awareness wash over you, dissolving pretension. Verses 15 and 16. Know indeed, if he does not desist, we will seize him by the forelock. Historically, this is a warning to an oppressor. Spiritually, it announces a universal truth. False authority cannot endure. The forelock symbolizes control and pride. When the ego lies about reality, it eventually loses balance. Truth has weight. Illusion cannot stand forever. Verses 17 and 18. Let him call his supporters. We will call the guardians. Worldly power gathers crowds. Divine truth gathers unseen forces. This verse teaches calm courage. Do not be intimidated by numbers. Reality has its protectors. Verse 19. No, do not obey him. Prostrate and draw near. This is the climax, not argument, not debate, not dominance. Prostration. The lowest physical position becomes the highest spiritual state. When the forehead touches the ground, the heart ascends. Sufis say, proximity is not achieved by climbing, it is achieved by bowing. When this verse is lived, the body softens completely. Tears may rise, breath deepens, the illusion of separation collapses. To prostrate is to say with the body what words cannot carry. I am your. Closing reflection. Surah Al Alaq is the map of awakening, from reading to humility to generosity to danger to surrender. It begins with knowledge and ends with nearness. It begins with Iqra and ends with sujud. This is not accidental. Knowledge that does not end in surrender is incomplete. If this surah stirred something within you, if you felt warmth, heaviness, stillness, or a quiet trembling, do not ignore it. That is the Qur'an touching the body, not just the mind. Sit with Surah Al Alaq again. Read it slowly. Prostrate after it. Let it read you. And if you seek more journeys like this, where the Quran is not explained but experienced, support this work, share it with a fellow seeker, and remain present. Subscribe and stay connected, because the Quran is not a book you finish. It is a mirror you keep returning to. And the more sincerely you return, the closer you are drawn.